Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hello Hosty podcast. Today I am joined by Freeman Richards of Brightworks Properties. Thank you for joining me today, Freeman.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about Brightworks Properties?
Okay, so Brightworks Property, we're a property management group. I'm one of three directors. Elliot and Oppe, unfortunately, couldn't be here with me today. So I'm representing them, hopefully I do so well. And so we manage properties all over the UK. We manage properties as far as West Yorkshire, all the way down to Brighton. And our property management structure consists of service accommodation, social housing, and also houses of multiple occupation as well.
Okay.
So it's quite a varied approach, but the main majority of our portfolio is service accommodation.
Right. How long have you guys been going?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years, about 2 years now.
Wow. Okay. And so let's start on the service accommodation. Was that also where you started with your property journey?
No, we actually started backwards. So when we first started, so this is just at the back end of lockdown now. So when we first started, we thought, oh, service accommodation, it's a bit tricky, it's a bit scary, no one has money right now. Who the hell is going to book a service accommodation on Airbnb? There's no money. Who's going on holiday right now? So we thought that's very, very risky. So we went backwards actually. So we actually started looking at HMOs because it's provided a lot more reinsurances. Perhaps we find something near a university, near a hospital, perhaps, that could, definitely not guarantee, but near enough guarantee or increase our occupancy within our property. And so we were trying to find a property there and really sort of struggled there because, again, we had no connections, no existing properties. Like, we're all very, very fresh new to property as well. So our first actual unit ended up being a social housing opportunity. And essentially, we just middleman and provide a lot of admin value from the social housing provider and the landlord. And we essentially just margin off the difference of what we provide them.
Okay, so that I understand that a bit better. So, I mean, that sounds like, from my perspective, that you found a property or a property owner that has a property and they didn't really want to be involved, and you kind of brokered a deal between them and a housing association. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Where was that?
That was in Birmingham.
Holborn. Okay. You still got that one?
Still got it.
Ah, good. Well done. Yeah. And then from where did you go? What happened?
So from there, it was like, okay, cool. We've got our first property, but it didn't really feel like our first property because they're very, very low maintenance, quite passive in the sense that, the social housing does what they need to do. And obviously we check in, we do our quarterly inspections as and when. But obviously, as you can imagine, we can also outsource that quite quickly or easily, shall I say. So it's like, okay, cool. Let's get our fingers a bit dirty, and let's try and find a HMO. So our next property, not too far, again in the West Midlands, we found a 7-bed HMO in Coventry, in the city centre, not too far from the university and not too far away from the hospital as well.
Yeah.
And that was really, really exciting because that was a very, very big house.
Yeah,
Probably the biggest house we've ever seen. There's a 7-bed, 5-bath. And again, we had to, do the necessaries. We had to clean it throughout. So doing a deep clean, furnish the property to a very high standard. And I feel like a very important thing that we wanted is we wanted the house that we create or that we make or that we furnish or that we build to reflect the type of tenants that we have. Because, we have a big philosophy that if we have a property that looks amazing and that looks nice, we also equally have people that are amazing and will treat them properly well.
Yeah, sure.
So again, we were sort of targeting, again, professionals as opposed to the students, as the stigma that comes to students.
Yeah.
Or mature students.
People are going to keep it tidy.
Exactly. So we went through that route and we were very successful with that. And we actually still do also have that property to date. Again, running that as a HMO. And then from there, we was like, okay, cool. We've got our first social housing unit.
How did you find that one in the second one, the HMO?
So the second one was via an agent. Again, just sheer luck. Even today, I can't tell you how many landlords, estate agents, developers, how many people have just so many no's.
Yeah.
So many no's, and he just took a chance on us.
Perseverance.
Annoyance. I'll probably say.
Annoyance more than perseverance.
I'll just give it to the annoying one. So again, with that, so just constantly just hounding them until he just sort of gave way, like, you take it. And I've actually been able to acquire a few units through that method.
Oh, really? Okay, good. Yeah. Perseverance, it counts for a lot, right?
Honestly.
Annoyance counts for a lot.
Honestly.
Yeah, good. So then, since the HMO, what's happened since then?
So since the HMO, we're like, okay, cool. So as I said, we went backwards. So as opposed to going through the service accommodation route, we went social housing, then we went HMO. Now we've gone to service accommodation. But again, we were still a bit nervous and, you know, mindful of, you know, expenditures. Like, okay, what about if this house is empty? You know, we didn't really understand a lot about due diligence. Again, we didn't have a mentor as such. So we learned everything on the go, and we've made so many mistakes, and we're constantly learning and constantly developing ourselves. So we actually went all the way to West Yorkshire because it was cheaper.
Right.
It was like you can get a lot of new build properties there for a lot less than you can in London. You know, just to give you like a perspective on the rent. So a studio that I have not too far from it, the studio here is in Holloway, is around £1,600 per month. But I can get a 2-bed in West Yorkshire for around £700 to £850, 2 bathrooms. Like very, very nice finish in town centre.
Yeah.
So it's just obviously an understanding, obviously, like with that. So once we got that unit, we again very, very nervous. So we set it up. We knew that our target market would be the university, because we're not too far from the university. The hospital as well, not too far from there. And also, believe it or not, Bradford has its own airport, which I didn't know.
Okay, I didn't know that either.
Neither.
Yeah.
So it has a very small airport there, and not too far from Leeds as well. So we're about 20 minutes away from Leeds.
Yeah.
So again, we wanted to be as proactive as possible. So even once we signed the lease and before we got the furniture out there, we actually just listed it straight away. And that's like a really like big like tip I'd also give to anyone who's doing service accommodation. Don't wait until you have your pro photos or you have everything ready and done. Just get it out there, and obviously make a small disclaimer that, you know, there will be a mattress. There will be chest of drawers. You know, not that just thinking that it's going to get empty
get the
flat.
listing live.
Exactly. So just getting the listing live, and literally from there we just got like a 2-week booking.
Amazing.
2-week booking. This is like, wow, this is amazing. This really, really works. So straight away, next day, drove up 4.5 hours to Bradford, 300 and something miles, and literally just did it from there. And then after, they continued to extend and extend and extend and extend. And then we got a massive like 4-month booking out of nowhere, direct as well.
Right, so you're not dealing with like 2 nights really. You're dealing with
longer
like
stays,
mid stays,
mid stays, and I was like amazed, like, wow, this is ridiculous. And we were even still trying to like wrap our head around this concept as well. Like, so people book on an Airbnb for 2-3 months as opposed to just like renting or going to a hotel. Like we like even struggle to understand the concept. But then when you understand the ease, and when you understand the fact that they don't need to worry about council tax, they don't need to worry about bills, they don't need to worry about convenience, and we pay, you know, we'll pay a lot for that nowadays. You know, same thing with Amazon. Like, how much will you pay to get something even same day sometimes?
Exactly.
You know, so and once we understood that, then we have a very clear understanding of our target market. And then we really penetrated that. So we really ensured that we were speaking to a lot of the local businesses. We really ensured that...
So you're getting direct bookings?
Yes. Again, so really ensured that we're speaking to our local businesses, really speaking to our guests as well, understanding why they've booked, what industry that they're working in as well, so we can even like work with like their competitors as well. So that really helped us. And then... So we did that for a few months. And then, again, I don't think anyone else was operating in that particular block. It was a 1-bedroom flat, that one. And then I established a really, really good relationship with the block manager. Right, okay. And just continue to give us more units and more units.
In the same block?
In the same block.
Okay, awesome.
In the same block.
Brilliant for like management.
Yeah, definitely. And I love like the flexibility of it. Like obviously, you know, things happen. Sometimes you get a leak. Sometimes you have an issue for property, and just like the ease of just bringing someone up and down within the same block is beautiful. Yeah,
you can move bookings around to suit your calendar.
Exactly. It's amazing. So you almost operate like a hotel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, wonderful. So how many units are you currently operating? By
January, we'll have 30 units.
Yeah, okay. Good. It's been quite a rapid growth for you guys.
Very,
Yeah, I've been witnessing your journey, and it's you're going at like breakneck speed. It's pretty inspiring to see. Yeah. So you're also getting into social housing.
Yes.
How's that come about, and how's that working out?
Yeah, so with the first one in Birmingham, that was, honestly speaking, probably by luck. We just sort of stumbled upon that provider. But now, since we've had it now, like I said, we only go there to do our quarterly inspections, but us physically have only been there twice.
Right, okay.
So like, wow, this is actually, you know, pretty much passive.
Yeah.
You know, so like, okay, so how do we tackle this a lot more? So again, a lot of networking. So I'm speaking to my local councils, I'm speaking to housing associations, I'm speaking with providers for like assisted living, supported living. And also my mum has a background in nursing as well. So that really gave me like a good understanding of the type of individuals that will be in the property. And I could just sort of work backwards, to look at the people who would house those type of individuals. So again, a lot of networking, a lot of trial and error, and then just finding their requirements. So once, I found, certain providers that were willing to work with us, and I understood the requirements.
When you say providers, you're talking about the people that, well, ultimately the association that will rent it off of you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we'll be actually providing the care to the individuals who will be living in the property.
So, so that I understand it perfectly. Like my experience with this is limited, so I'm trying to get a full picture. So what you're basically doing is you're finding an individual, or let's say a company that might have a few properties, and they're looking to outsource pretty much everything. They don't want any hassle, and that's where you come in. You take the hassle of like furnishing, getting it up to regs,
yes,
and then finding the people that will accommodate it. Okay.
Yes, yeah,
that's quite a cool model.
Yeah, it is actually quite good, but it can be very, very strenuous because again the requirements are so specific. Because again, like like even like this week I was in Norwich setting up a HMO. And even with that, it's a fully licensed HMO, but the specific requirements that the provider or the association that we're working with need it's so specific and it's so granular that it needs to be done. And sometimes it's not just sort of slap bang, putting the furniture here and there, lick of paint. So, and it's less more of the aesthetics and more of like the livelihood of the property and ensuring that it's habitable. Yeah. Because a lot of these individuals that will be living in this property will likely live in this property for the rest of their life, or as long as we have the contract with the landlord, developer, or agent. So it needs to ensure that it's structurally sound, the environment is well, the neighbors are well, there's no sort of like antisocial behavior that could potentially like offset any sort of triggers that they may have. So like it's very, very specific requirements. So, they don't always sort of come around, but when they do, really good.
It sounds like that's probably one of the biggest challenges in this business is getting things to regs.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'd guess onboarding new properties. That's the buzzword for every property manager out there. It's kind of like, how do I get more properties?
No, definitely.
So how have you managed to tackle that problem of getting of onboarding more properties?
So in our business, we sort of always like to understand like we play to strengths. So at the start, we were sort of doing everything. But we really understand, like, let's play to our strengths and let's really be able to grow this business. So obviously one of my business partners, she has a, very strong background in marketing and communication. And my other business partner has a really strong background in finance and systems. And obviously myself, more on the sales and acquisition 4 point. So, all of our units, that's my job to acquire them and to develop those relationships with these agents, with these brokers, with these developers, to just sort of sell the story of our company and our offering and how we can add value, which is the most important thing. And it just essentially just been a lot different. I always think, what's the standard spiel of everyone's offering? We're offering you a guaranteed rent. We're gonna maintain your property. But like, I always try to think what actually matters, especially to like landlords. And that's my pitch. So like, I always try to do like a research. I stalk in the legal way.
Right. Yeah, in the legal way.
So like, I always go like
you don't follow when they're leaving the house.
Exactly. So like I'll go on the LinkedIn and see if they have a young family perhaps. I say, giving us this property, being able to offer, obviously offering you a guaranteed rent and maintenance, but also give you time to spend with your family. Like a lot of these qualitative aspects, what really and ultimately matters to them, if, all the money and all the other bits and pieces, what really matters to them, and it's time. And that's a lot of the time I pitch, like, I'm giving you time. And how can you value that? And that's been a lot of the ways that I've been able to acquire a lot of the units and build a lot of the relationships. And sometimes, I would have a developer who maybe has like 4 units and he'll just sort of test me, okay, I'll give you this one, I'll see how you manage. And again, it's just putting our head down and just working on it and just letting our work talk for itself. And then once we've done that, and then they can see, okay, cool, Brightworks are doing what they need to do, then, it's just sort of to roll. And again, I know we spoke just sort of off mic about this, but referrals. A lot of, that's probably like a third of where a lot of my onboardings come from.
Okay.
Referrals,
That's great that you managed to get the referrals like in just a couple of years, because that like is in my opinion the best form of marketing for onboarding, but it takes time. It takes effort.
It does, yeah. And like I said, just really working with the landlords as well, trying to be as transparent as possible and giving them all the reassurances that they need to ensure that you're going to do a great job. So that's really helps.
It's interesting you're talking about what motivates people. I remember one time I took a property on. I spoke to the property owner and I prepared like really in-depth Excel sheets and I had everything ready, like, and I'd been really thinking about it and I'd like prepared all this stuff. And then when we met, the guy said to me, I started showing him and he was like, is that how much I earn? And I said, yes. And he went, done. And it kind of taught me a lesson about, okay, so this particular individual was just interested in what's the bottom line? Like, as long as you take all the headaches away.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's what it is. We get paid for taking challenges. I don't like to say the word problems, but get paid to take challenges off of other people, property owners. So what do you currently see as your bottleneck, if you've got any at all, in the business?
Maintenance.
Managing
maintenance. And again, like you said, because we've scaled so quickly within a very, very sort of isolated period, a lot of problems and a lot of challenges have occurred. So obviously my background is in project management, and we always do try to systemize and automate what we do. But sometimes when we're just growing so fast, we have like a lot of maintenance issues.
Yeah.
And a big learning curve for us is always, doing more due diligence on our property, especially like older properties are within block. So like now, we're sort of almost paying back for old sins.
Okay.
But like, obviously now we have a more thorough method. We do a lot more due diligence.
Okay.
Like, our due diligence is so thorough. Like, we even knock on neighbors' doors. We knock on neighbors' doors in the sense of like, hey, this is what we're doing. If there's any issues at all, if any of the guests that perhaps are coming into the property that are going to perhaps upset, here's our card. Please call us if there's anything. And, just sort of keeping them happy, maybe around Christmas time, they may get a present. Not bribery. So we always, we're trying to be as thorough as possible to just sort of streamline our processes, streamline our systems. So when we do have these maintenance issues and when we do have anything that may occur in the property, we're almost sort of ready for it as much as we can. I feel like we sort of experienced anything or everything bad that can. So we're sort of ready for it, and we've got our sort of, problem Bible, so to speak.
Sure.
That we
Murphy's Law.
Exactly. So we just flick through it.
So how do you manage it with regards to like your properties are spread out across the UK? So you can't obviously send a maintenance guy from London up to Bradford. Maybe you do. I don't know. How do you handle that?
So firstly, before we onboard a property, we try to set up shop. And what we mean by setting up shop is building our power team. So our power team will consist obviously of cleaners, will consist of handymen, or people. It will also consist of plumbers, electricians, carpenters, and we always have 3 sets.
Okay.
People let you down.
For sure. Yeah.
And that's the standard. So we always have 3 sets. So obviously we have our main go-tos, and we always have our backups, and our backups have backups.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that we do, because from the time we set up a property, I'm sure you can imagine, like as soon as before it's even live, you can even get a booking through. So we need to be ready and we need to be prepared should the worst happen. So that's like the first thing that we do when we're setting up shop. Then we ensure that we have people, especially local, with very, very good understanding of their specific trade. And we also get them to come to the property as well. We also do try to make an effort ourselves to go to the property. It's a nice little day trip out as well. To go to Bradford if you want to go to Bradford. But book with me. So like it's a nice opportunity to see the flat and obviously, or the house, and also when communicating that to our support team, who do a lot of our guest communication as well. Again, us being able firsthand seeing the property as well, are able to feed that back. But obviously, once we set up shop in a specific area and we've built up our team, then things really get fun in the sense, I say fun, that's how boring I am. Fun in terms of the systems and setting up places. So our maintenance team can go here, they can view on our behalf, they can set and they can furnish and they can do etc. So it starts to become a lot more streamlined.
I understand exactly what you mean by fun, because I find it really fun when there's a system that's been built, that I've built, and then I see it in action. It's such a buzz. Honestly. When you see it working, you're like, oh, that's so good.
Honestly,
it makes you feel good. So you said that you learn through the School of Hard Knocks on STRs, short-term rentals.
Yes.
If you could, or looking back, what advice would you give yourself when you first started?
Just go for it.
Yeah.
Honestly, just go for it. I felt like at the start, it took us a year to get our first property. It took us a year to get our first property. And I felt that we spent a lot of time worrying, a lot of time thinking, which is fine, obviously due diligence. I always say do your due diligence. Obviously don't just sort of close your eyes and just pick here.
Sure.
So do your due diligence, do your checks, make sure it's...
What due diligence, how? Like, how do you do that?
So obviously nowadays there's a lot of softwares that allow you to analyze how, from a service accommodation perspective, will allow you to analyze how a specific unit or an area would perform on relative OTAs. And then that will give you an indication of the average nightly rate, and that will give you an indication of the average occupancy.
Okay.
So that's the first part, checking the software.
Yeah.
Two is also speaking to people. So speaking to people who are actually in the area. And it's a bit of a funny situation because obviously you're technically speaking to your potential competitors, but you do find, especially in the service accommodation space, you will find people are quite open, quite sharing, and don't necessarily keep a lot of things to themselves. So you just simply ask like, hey, I'm thinking to get X in this area. What do you think? How are you finding it? And they, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, people tend to be quite honest and transparent. So that's our second step. Then our third step is then, actually doing due diligence on the local area. So then we Google the local area, specific, sometimes even the road name, and going on news. So, if there's been any sort of crimes, if there's been any sort of robberies, if there's any sort of developments, any sort of buildings, any sort of construction. So looking at it both ways, what could be the negatives and what could be the positives? Because sometimes you can look at these softwares, but again, it's from a very isolated perspective as well. And the fifth one is, again, just going on these OTAs and looking at some people's calendars, seeing how they're performing and what works well.
What? Sorry to interrupt.
No, that was it.
Okay. So you mentioned that you use the software for kind of prospecting properties. What software do you use for that?
AirDNA.
AirDNA. Okay. I've used AirDNA. Price Labs are pretty. I love Price Labs, as a tool. I'm like, it's so good. Which is strange because I used to hate them. When they first came out, I really didn't have a lot of love for them. But they've changed. They've done so well. But Price Labs I found really good. But I think you need to kind of take it with a pinch of salt because the results that you get like in their market reports are kind of, in my perspective, they can be a bit of a mixed bag. You need to look at it with like an analytical eye. But good to hear that you're using which ones you're using. So looking forward, what's in the pipeline for Brightworks?
So looking forward in the pipeline for us, I definitely think it's concentrating more in London. I think we've got a really nice sweet spot in London in terms of the demand. We have really, really good contractor relationships, which allow us sometimes not even necessarily needing to rely on OTAs, even outside of London, especially in the West Midlands as well. We've onboarded 2 or 3 properties, which we've not even had to put on OTAs just because we've got direct bookings. Immediately. Sometimes like we're bespoke or sourcing properties for the contractors, for guests, which is amazing. We're speaking to contractors like, do you want blue linen or do you want grey? So that's really good, and we're very glad that we're in a position like that. And I suppose the next steps we spoke about this sort of off mic as well. Going overseas as well, and Dubai is like a big one for us as well. We know that a lot of people are going there and setting up shop there, and I think we want to provide a very sort of luxurious sort of element to it from the corporate perspective and also from the leisure perspective as well.
More fun.
Exactly, more fun. More work holidays.
That's it, workations.
Exactly. And also really sort of growing our portfolio share of the social housing as well. Because as I mentioned, obviously once we have them and they're there, they can become very, very passive.
Passive, cool. Okay, so one thing I like to ask people, I mentioned off camera, was that I'd like to ask people for a tip, trick or hack that they have. Doesn't have to be necessarily related to business, but in life in general. Do you have anything that you would share?
Tip, trick, or hack. A tip, trick, or hack.
Something cool. I mean, like maybe I've just put you on the spot there. I should have pre-warned you that was coming. But I don't know. Like little things like.
Okay, a tip. I'll give you a tip. Networking. Previously, I was working in a corporate environment before I've now become full-time in property, and LinkedIn was my best friend. I used to network. And I used to speak to everyone that was doing what I wanted to do. Okay. So again, when I was doing project management, I was speaking to junior project managers before I became a junior project manager. I was speaking to senior project managers. I was speaking to portfolio heads. I was speaking to all the people who were where I wanted to be. And that gave me a lot of insight, and that allowed me to have a trajectory of where I wanted to be. So tip, like, put yourself out there. Put yourself out there, network, speak to everyone about what you do. I always used to sort of be like, just keep myself to myself and very quiet, but like, what's that doing me? What's that doing me? People need to know, especially in property, like people invest in people, a lot of the time. So like even sometimes when I'm in local areas, I'll literally be speaking like, again, a funny way of how I secured a unit. I was in an Uber and it was like a 12 or 15-minute journey. You just said, oh, where you come from? I was just in a property. So what do you do? I said, I do property management. So, oh, really? I've got a few properties here and here and here and here. That was my landlord. My Uber driver. So again, like I said, like even if when I go to the off-license shop or I go to get a curry or whatever, like I speak to everyone and anyone about what I do. And because you just never know.
Communicate loud, yeah. There's something well, it's something you see a lot online, but it's a good idea because people know you're there. They can come and do business with you.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. So you're also using Alina by Hello Hosty.
Yes.
Give us your opinion. How's it working out for you?
So again, the concept of using artificial intelligence to speak to my guests, and I'm very sort of protective of my guests as well, was very, very wary because I don't know how Alina would react. And then you were very, very reassuring in terms from the onboarding process, in terms of the real life and sometimes even more human responses.
More human than I am.
That Alina has, and can be so sympathetic as well. And even providing more options. The one that I really like is we rarely sort of offer early check-in, only because a lot of our units are quite closely together and we utilize the same power team. So ensuring that our cleaners have enough time to do what they need to do. So we rarely do it unless if we don't have any other bookings lined up. So a lot of the question is, can I leave luggage there? And I love the option how Alina will just quickly and automatically find luggage spots in respective areas and tell guests, we currently unfortunately aren't able to accommodate you here, but you can do this. So it's almost not like a shutdown. It's also providing alternative options. And even I always say to people considering it, and they may think of it from a cost perspective, I'm big on the value of my time. And currently obviously I have support staff who do a lot of the guest communication, and I had an open and frank conversation with them. How much time do you speak talking to guests about things that are already within the check-in information or already within our guidebooks? And they said an average of, an hour to 2 hours a day. So when I did the maths and I did it a month, it's costing me way more money for my support staff to be speaking to guests about things we've already provided them. I might as well have artificial intelligence to do that plus more. And what essentially Alina does, it gives me more time to be working on my business as opposed to in my business, and also allows me to redirect some of my existing resources to other areas, maybe support us with more direct bookings, support us in sourcing more units, support us in streamlining our properties as well. Our processes as well. So it's given us a lot more time. To help on a fly. Like I said, I'm a sucker for cool stuff. Good.
It's really it's nice to hear your positive experiences with Alina, because for us in our property management business, it's done the same. Guests, they need, I call it a digital hug. They literally need someone to, well, not every guest, but a lot of guests need someone to kind of handhold them through the process. And even though you've given them the document, they don't care, they don't want to read it. They want someone to write them a message. And that means either there's going to be a human there being paid to do that, or AI can take care of it. And I guess for a lot of people, I think that they'd be wary of the idea that a computer's now talking to their guests. But AI, where it is today, is it can handle it better than I can.
Definitely. I think it's super helpful because with us, we often provide a 12-hour support a day. But again, with Alina, you're able to provide 24 hours support. Again, some odd requests. I get actually quite a bit. Where's the nearest late house takeaway? Or where's the local free parking, or just so many other questions. And again, providing that digital hug, again, reassuring guests that, we're always available to support them and ask them. And again, even if there is something that unfortunately Alina can't support with, again, the reassuring aspect that, one of our property managers will be able to support you. So and again, it just doesn't sort of leave the guests in the air waiting.
There was years and years ago, I went to a home away, it used to be, or VRBO now. I went to a home away conference in London, and there was two takeaways that I got from that. And the one that I'm talking about now is that the number one factor in a good review is staff attentiveness. And obviously you can imagine human psychology. If you send a message to the property manager and you get ignored for 12 hours, you're not going to feel great. But one thing that Alina can do is speak to the guest, say, we're here, we're thinking about you, you're at front of mind, we haven't forgotten about you, we're going to resolve your challenge or give them the information that they need. And it's done wonders for our overall review score. I think so. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're enjoying Hello Hosty and Alina.
Always. Brilliant.
Freeman, thank you so much for joining me, and it's been a pleasure. And if people want to find out more about you or about Brightworks, how would they go about doing so?
So they can find Brightworks on BW Property UK and myself, Freeman_Richards, on all social media platforms.
On all the socials. All right. Superb. Thank you, Freeman.
Brilliant. No worries. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.